don't know how powerful your voice is. They don't want to hear another legislator. They don't want to hear somebody else that's advocating. Sometimes they just want to hear that personal story.
The only way to stop asbestos-related cancers is to ban it.
About 40,000 Americans die every year of asbestos-caused diseases.
So my name is Harminder Bains. I'm a lawyer and I'm a partner at ADAO law firm, which is based in the UK. And sadly, I know too much about this disease because my father, Harminder Bains, died from mesothelioma 24 years ago. Right, so I've listened to everyone today and I agree. I've been dealing with legal cases for just under 30 years. And to be honest, I'm angry that year after year, we still have to have conferences like this. We shouldn't be having to come here. You know, this matter should be settled. We know asbestos is dangerous. No amount of asbestos is safe. You know, so lawyers like me and lawyers in this room, we win legal battles. But the war against the asbestos industry is still alive and kicking, have no doubt about that. And the reason it's alive and kicking is because it's worth millions, billions of pounds of money to the asbestos industry. It's as simple as that. And the asbestos industry just doesn't want to listen to the science, and it does it deliberately because it's worth so much money to them. They're sending doubt scientists. They're sending doubt scientists deliberately. Last year, I spoke to you about what had happened to Dr. Robin Rudd, a renowned doctor in the UK. You know, someone called John Bridle, who refers to himself as a professor, and he's not a professor. He basically tried to get Robin Rudd struck off the medical register in the UK for simply advocating that Cristal was dangerous and it caused mesothelioma. I also spoke last year about your very own Jacqueline Moline, about what the industry is trying to do to her in court in the US regarding her opinion that talc contains asbestos and it's causing mesothelioma. And the same industry is basically tying Linda Reinstein into knots by subpoenaing her. And they simply do that because they do not want her to have time to spend on her campaigning work. The asbestos industry sends in spies. We all know about this man, Rob Moore, who attended ADAO conference on 2 occasions. I mean, look at him. He looks like any one of us. So you should have no doubt, people in this room or next generation, this war is going to continue. These spies are still out there. Now, if you may remember, the spy was actually hired by a company called K2 Integrity. If you go on their website, it actually says, our investigations team helps clients gain control of risks that may threaten the value they have worked hard to build. I mean, that's what it says on their website. But if you look on the other side, that's what I think it should say. It should simply say, perhaps it should say, we have experience of sending in spies like Rob Moore to lie and deceive campaigners, doctors and lawyers. Our spies will record conversations using hidden microphones in their clothes. Our spies will take money from campaigners and lawyers. You know, Rob Moore took £3,500 from me because I wanted to help him set up a charity, and the $3,500 was to go towards the legal fees. Linda Reinstein gave him money. So K2 Integrity. In travel. So K2 Integrity. I mean, this is what it should say. So I hope you agree, and hope K2 Integrity. Can you please, if you're listening, watching, change your website. If you don't know about Rob Moore and his story, a podcast came out last year from a renowned UK journalists, Kerry Thomas and Alexi Mustras. You can find it on Spotify. It's called Into the Dirt, and it is well worth a listen. And I think, you know, people, youngsters, I think someone said here, the next generation need to be aware of what's going on. You really do need to listen to these things. And this is a way of getting the message out. You know, use podcasts, use media. There is also a film coming out, and this is hot news or up-to-date news. It's coming out in April 2025, and it's called Corporate Spy. And it's by a Norwegian company called Indie Film. So would you please all look out for that? I think it's going to preview later on this year in Scandinavia. So that'll be interesting. I think some people in this room actually took part in that film. The other thing I want to talk to you about today is a company called CAPE. Now, I think some of you are aware about the legal case which I did against CAPE in the UK about 3 or 4 years ago now, where I managed to get, on behalf of the Asbestos Victims Forum, some documents which they wanted kept hidden, because these documents showed exactly how dangerous their asbestos products really were. And they deliberately misled the government, they deliberately misled external scientists. Their own in-house scientists, for example, said Asbestolux was safe, but they knew that it absolutely was not safe and that it was very dangerous simply by handling it, simply by carrying Asbestolux, which is known as ABI board, which is in schools, hospitals, buildings, public buildings, homes. Simply by handling it, the asbestos fibres are released. So this company is important to you just as much as it is in the UK. The reason being, ever since I did that case and the documents which have been now placed in the public domain, I have had lawyers contact me from over the world, and they wanted information about it. And that's because there is a law firm also in the US which is currently suing CAPE. And that's because CAPE is trying to escape from legal financial responsibility, i.e. paying victims compensation in South Carolina at the moment. So people dying from asbestos diseases, CAPE is trying to avoid it by not taking part in the case. And this is a statement which is Morgan, Lewis and Bockless LLP. I can read this out because it's a statement from them. They said, there is a legal case against CAPE affiliates going on currently in South Carolina. The court appointed a receiver to handle CAPE's affairs there because CAPE, as it always does, refused to appear in the United States court case. The court's receiver is seeking judicial determinations regarding CAPE and other companies to ensure US plaintiffs dying from asbestos diseases can pursue compensation from them. Mohed Altrad, who is the president, is refusing to acknowledge the South Carolina's court's jurisdiction and is refusing to participate in the litigation altogether. The CAPE/Altrad lawyers have tried a large number of series of appeals and are unsuccessful, have tried to remove it from the federal court and have even threatened litigation against the South Carolina receiver in the High Court of England and Wales to get the legal case struck out. Despite the best efforts to avoid it, the case is scheduled to go to trial in South Carolina in December of this year. So this is why CAPE is actually, you guys in the US should also know about this company. It's not just a UK problem. Altrad is the parent company of CAPE. So this is a legal case which, on behalf of the asbestos victims support groups, we succeeded in the Supreme Court of England, which allowed the documents to be put in the public domain, which is now, as I say, helping various victims all over the world. Now, what do those documents show? Well, as I said, these are the sorts of things they showed. You can read what they said. But I also think you all must have heard of an American company called Johns Manville. So CAPE encouraged Johns Manville to not put warning labels on Asbestolux. And, so they actually knew how dangerous it was, yet they actually encouraged other companies to deliberately not put warnings on simply for profit. They had their own in-house scientist called Dr. Smiver. He accepted that mesothelioma could be caused by small and possibly small amount of asbestos exposure. And that he actually says in these documents, no type of asbestos is innocent. But that is not what they were openly telling the public. So this all came out in the documents which were kept between themselves. This is why they wanted these documents to not come out in the public domain, because they actually tell the real story. So the Asbestos Victims Forum in the UK, who was my client, which is a charity which represents victims of asbestos, the support groups all over the UK, have said to CAPE/Alltrad, we won this case. Would you please now pay £10 million for medical research to Asthma Lung UK so that they can actually try and find a cure for mesothelioma? That's what they're asking for. They're not asking for the £10 million to be paid to them. They want it paid to Asthma Lung UK. Alltrad, CAPE, have to date not responded. We had a meeting with Ranoran. They've not given the 10 million at all. But they are, they're trying to whitewash their image because they do have enough money to support the French and New Zealand rugby teams. Look at them. This is their rugby teams wearing their T-shirts, Alltrad. So they're trying to whitewash their image. We should not let them get away with this. 10 million to a company like CAPE and Alltrad is peanuts. They've got billions. And this is a photograph of Mohamed Alltrad. He's actually been convicted in the French courts of bribery and misuse of corporate assets. And there's Ranoran, and he is giving instructions. He's a lawyer. He's given instructions. Not only did he give instructions to fight the legal case in England, which I was doing on behalf of the Asbestos Victims Forum, but he's also given instructions to the case I've just mentioned in the US South Carolina court. So I think you should all be aware of who these people are. So the unbelievable thing is, this company called CAPE, which is also, as I've explained, in the US, what it did in the UK was, and as I said, it's also did in the US, it imported asbestos into the UK. It then spent years manufacturing asbestos products like Asbestolux. Then it also put it into the buildings in the UK. And now, unbelievably, it's applying to the government to win contracts so they can remove it from the UK buildings. And and the UK government has recently awarded them a £3.5 billion contract to remove it from buildings. So isn't that outrageous? This company is going full circle. It's continuing to make money out of something which they knew was fatal and kills people. The last thing I want to speak about is Hannah Fletcher. So Hannah Fletcher is a client of mine. On the left, you can see that's how she was pre-mesothelioma symptoms. On the right is how she is today. She was exposed to asbestos by talcum powder and by wearing makeup which contains asbestos. She was so brave and she instructed me, and she brought a case in the US New York County Court, and she basically was successful in obtaining compensation against several cosmetic companies. Now, for legal reasons, I can't mention the names of those companies, but there is a judgment on the website, 2019, which is on the website, should you wish to read it. And she is the first person in the UK who managed to convince a US court that they had jurisdiction to hear a victim who was dying and living in the UK, that her court case can be brought in the US. So that's her. And if you want to hear her story, I think some of you also were involved in this. This is a BBC podcast. It's called How They Made Us Doubt Everything, and it's called Talc Tales, and it's about asbestos in makeup. Yes, so on behalf of the Asbestos Victims Forum, I hope you are aware now that CAPE is also based in the US, and how it's not just a UK problem. The Asbestos Victims Forum has asked people to sign a letter, which they are, and I think we need to work together. So they're asking you to sign the letter if you would, which can be sent to Ranoran and CAPE, to ask them if they will please pay £10 million for medical research to asthma lung. And then also, perhaps we can take a photograph outside later after the conference. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.